All right, so I thought I'd make a video, just a quick rundown, just for fun, and just kind of get into the flow of things and workflow, and maybe like a couple of analog decision making processes that I go through on any random particular instrument that I may deal with on any given day. Um, Today I'm choosing an acoustic guitar. Now I recorded this guitar with two stereo mics and a space pair, in a pretty traditional sense, where one is, you know, not right over the hole, but slightly off, so you're not getting a lot of the boominess, and then 12th fret, your standard um, space pair. And obviously moving those around until I get the image that I want and the phase coherency that I want. Where the phase coherency really came in was I had a third mic, which is what we're going to be listening to right now. I had a large diaphragm condenser about 6 to 8 feet away, and it was a small room, so I didn't get to play around with putting it at larger distances, and I didn't want it really close because I had the space pair for that. Um, and so that's the one I'm going to be listening to. And now this isn't going to be incredibly critical going through like an entire mix from front to back. It's going to be patching a few things, talking about what I'm thinking about and why I'm doing it, and listening. It's mainly just to hear, kind of geek out with some of the gear. And I had an idea to do videos like that are kind of shorter, more just for vanity and fun. And when I was a lot younger, didn't have any of this stuff. I always wanted to hear what this stuff sounded like. And there's a lot of great stuff out there today. We live in a really cool time where we can just share a lot of things with each other. I love it. And so I just kind of want to, let's, jump in on my own and listen to have you guys listen to some of this stuff. And even if I've heard most of all the gear, I still like watching the videos anyways that people put out. It's like one of my favorite pastimes is Google image searching outboard gear and listening to gear shootouts, and I'll just sit there and just drool and just do like 2 hours will go by. Anyways, so I recorded this particular guitar with a 251, an Upton 251, and I believe it was going into an API, one of the API desk preamps here, on the desk here, and then possibly going to an La2a, but if it wasn't doing much, maybe catching a peak here or there. And so we'll just listen to it with no processing, and then I'm going to jump over there and make some patches and listen to a couple EQs, base that on what I'm hearing and what I want to hear, patch some reverb, and see what happens. So just listen to it as recorded. And let's see, let's get a good little chunk here. Okay. All right, so it's a cool little riff there, and you can hear the bleed from the hand drums in the background, which is pretty cool too. It's a neat tune. One of my really great friends came over and laid that down, and so the first thing I'm hearing is the boominess that I would probably want to take out. And we know that a lot of what we take out is in the context of the rest of the instrumentation and the sparseness or density of the mix, arrangement, so on and so forth, stylistic choices. There's a long list that varies, And so the first thing, and I'm going to treat this, by the way, within the context of just the acoustic guitar and just sweetening it up and just listening to tools. So I'm not going to do it within the context of the rest of the arrangement and the instruments in play. And so maybe I want to address some of the boominess. The first thing I think about is something much more aggressive than even a high pass filter on a mic pre, which I may have used. On these APIs have a gentle 6 dB per octave at 80 hertz, I believe. And so I'm going to reach much higher than that, and what I'm going to go for right off the bat is a crisp, clear image of the acoustic guitar that still has the fundamental tones down in that lower register that are very important. And especially if this were like a singer-songwriter situation to where you had a singer and his guitar and there wasn't much else going on, I'd want to leave a lot of that body of the guitar because I need to fill out the frequency range, the frequency spectrum to get a full picture and get it from top to bottom the way that it should sound. As opposed to a denser mix with more things going on, it'd probably be cutting out a lot of the low end, a lot more of the low end anyways. So within this context, I'll treat it as if it would be more of a singer-songwriter with maybe a musician and just his guitar and maybe some hand drums and trinkets here and there like that. So I'm gonna come over here and patch on an insert. One thing I love about having a desk, whether it's a small desk or a large desk, or insert points, and so I can just A, B, and at the press of a button here, the changes that I've made. It's a really handy, not 100% necessary, but if you have it, it's definitely very handy. So on channel 1, I believe, I'm going to take the insert output out of the board, and I'm going to go into a Pultec EQP1N equalizer, and I'm going to mess around with that a little bit. And then from there, we'll make some more decisions, maybe regarding dynamics and even de-essing with some of when he's sliding around, making chord changes, things of, the fret sounds, things of that nature. So let's listen without it inserted. So this will be, again, just the acoustic. Then I'll hit the insert with the Pultec flat. So there will be no tonal adjustments here. Everything will be flat. All right. And then when it's playing, I'll kick it in, and you should be able to hear the difference. And after, I'm going to talk about what I think that I'm hearing. That should have looped. Let me fix that. Sorry about that. So it's enter now. We're going to listen to the first phrase, then when the measure starts over, I'm going to kick it out. Okay, here's what I'm hearing is, so the Pultec has valves or tubes for the makeup gain stage, considering it's a passive equalizer. It has input and output transformers as well as an interstage transformer, and a lot of very old capacitors. And with all of that being said, we're getting a lot of harmonic distortion, or THD, or total harmonic distortion, being generated by the unit just without changing any of the parameters functionally. And what I'm hearing is the acoustic guitar was recorded boomy to begin with. The mic positioning, the sound of the room, the nature of, the complexity of the kind of chords that he's playing, the register that they're on, all these things have interplay, and they're creating a boomy character, and kicking that EQ in really exaggerated the boomy character. And that's one thing that the Pultecs and a lot of the old vintage gear that are tube-based are known for, is just passing them through will give them what people call a little more weight. And what they mean by weight is especially the low frequencies become accentuated by second and third order harmonics and give you more, what it's called, more complexity, and it gives you what people even call warm. There's a lot of these terms that are thrown around to describe something that is quite abstract, which is neat. And so it does all of these things, and it does it well from situation to situation, or sometimes it doesn't. In this situation, I didn't like what it did. However, the good news is we have knobs on there with frequency selections that we can go and maybe start to carve things out and at the same time be left with some of the tasty harmonics that the unit itself inherently is generating with the addition of taking some of those frequencies out. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to kick it in and I'm going to play it. I'm going to go over there and set some parameters and come back and talk about them a little bit. Okay, so what's interesting is when I'm over there making changes, I hear that there are changes being made, and then I come back over here and I go, that's interesting, and I don't really get hit by the difference until I kick that thing out and hear what it sounded like without, the changes that I made. Then I go, oh, okay, yeah, that's what we're doing. So what I did was I very quickly played around between 30, 60, and 100 on the cut only. You may have heard me change the boost a little bit when it was on 100 and it got really boomy and I took it back down. I know that unit pretty well. When you use something thousands or hundreds of times, I haven't counted, that you just sort of get the feel for, and so the one thing that really brought it to life was when I started to sort of take out some of the boominess with the 100 on 7 attenuate. So we're cranking, and the Pultecs, if you go look at the charts, it's not just starting at 100 and shelving below like it would with something that you use, that you can visually see in the box. There's a lot of amazing plugins that you can see what you're doing. It's not the way it works. That thing is starting 5, 6, 700 and gradually eating away a lot of that low end, well above 100. It's an amazing piece of gear once you conceptually understand the way those curves are interacting, which took me a very long time, still learning actually. And so the next thing was 12K, which is a bell shape, and I have it on a pretty wide bandwidth, I think 7 or 8, probably 8. Yeah. And that took up the center point. The center frequency is 10K. And 12K, excuse me, and it's also affecting a lot of the other octaves around it as well, considering it's such a wide bell. So we're really lifting a lot of the brightness and generating some more complexity in the higher frequency range of that guitar. And what's really neat about the microphone that I used is you can abuse it. It takes abuse well. It takes compressor and EQ amazingly. You can really, back that thing into a corner, and it won't give very easily. It won't give up on you very easily. And so I had to check the camera. Sometimes the battery gets low without me realizing it. And so really lifted the top end, and what we're hearing is, taking the mud out again and really boosting 12K as a center point. The next thing that I want to do is I want to control some of the dynamics, and I want to boost the top end a little more, but I want to take it into a de-esser. And after I take it into a de-esser and sweep around and sort of find the sweet spot, then I want to maybe create some space around the guitar. So on some auxiliaries, I'm going to patch a reverb unit, and I'll do that in just a moment. The first thing I'm going to do is patch an La2a compressor and then a 902, an old DBX 902 de-esser. From the 80s, and I love these things. let's see. So let me just make that patch. I'm going to take it from the same insert point, post Pultec. I definitely want that de-esser post Pultec because I like cranking high frequencies into the de-esser and really finding a sweet spot. And one cool thing that I'm going to do with the La2a is the R37 on the back is a high frequency emphasis. And it was back from the broadcast days to where it has it compresses more so. It feeds 15K on a shelf to the sidechain, the compression detector, essentially, more so than it does other frequencies. Just like your sidechain filters on a lot of modern day compressors, which are almost mandatory in this day and age of mixing, it sort of does it in a different kind of way, where it's shelving 15K into the detector and it's compressing 15K almost in a de-essing sense. And so one of my favorite things to do, especially on vocals, is to, in conjunction, in tandem, use the 902 de-esser with the R37 parameter on the La2a until I just get the sweet spot. And it doesn't always work, but when it does, it's quite magical. So coming out of the, coming out of the EQP and gonna go into, let's go into the 902 first. And I'm going to come out of that, and the La2a will be last on our list here. Into the La2a, and then out, back into the insert point on the board. The same one we were just using. And we're hearing we're hearing a noise floor. That's called old vintage gear. I try not to let the kids hear it these days when I'm mixing for them. I'm kind of kidding, but I've had a complaint or two. So let's see here. Listening again, and I'm going to go make adjustments on that La2a and the 902. But before I do, I'm going to go take that R37 all the way flat because I have it all the way clockwise right now to where it is compressing more so 15K and above on a shelf. So before I play it, I want to go back that off because I want to mess around with it here in real time. So I'm grabbing a handy screwdriver. And in the future, in some of these videos, I may, I'm just getting used to this. I may take the camera with me. I need to get a, what do you call those? You know, where it stabilizes the camera. I'll think of the name in a second. Okay. Now the insert point is out on the desk, so we're going to just hear the guitar by itself. And I'm going to leave the decisions on the EQP 1A that we had already made, this time going into an La2A then a 902. Okay, going from the top. A lot of top end on that EQP 1A. I'm going to back it off just a little bit here. Okay, so what I did over there was I was listening to the 902 and I was watching. I exaggerated the parameter, the DS threshold, and I was sweeping through the frequencies, listening, but also watching the meter for when he was changing chords. I wanted to see, I knew kind of where to start, and I wanted to see at what frequency grabbed those meters the most, because that's about where I'm going to set it more conservatively in real use here. And we're going to listen to that, and I also backed off the 12K just a little bit on the Pultec. You probably heard it get a little bit more mild on the top end, which I would want. And I also attenuated 20K on the Pultec just a little bit, and that sort of backed the bite off of the guitar in conjunction with the boosts that I'm making. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through this, and I'm going to slowly change the R37 on the back of the La2A, and you should hear it get a little darker and darker and darker. It's buried. That top end is buried. It's all the way clockwise, which is full force. That 15K shelf into the detector is all the way. It's bled all the way into the circuit. And not only can you hear it, but the meter on the unit represents what we're hearing. So it went from just tickling the meter when it was set flat to just bearing the meter, because there's a lot of top end being boosted into that compressor. So it's going to react to the majority of the signal it's reacting to is a lot of the top end, because you got to remember we cut out, you know, I'm gonna guess the curve probably 400, 3 to 400 starting gently, and then as it gets to the 100 point on the Pultec that we set, it probably gets more, the slope gets steeper. So we've cut quite a bit of bottom out. And by the way, when I'm using the Pultec, I'm mainly using my ears and listening to what I want. I'm not thinking in terms of the curves. However, I'm referencing what the curves look like in my head from time to time, but I'm mostly using my ears and going, okay, that's where I need it, and massaging this stuff. And now I'm going to go put that R37 at about 50%, because I did hear when I was slowly moving it, the point to where I'd about where I'd want it. And then I'm going to mess with the 902 a little bit. Then we're going to kick this out of circuit and see the changes we made. Then add some reverb, and I don't know, we'll see what happens. Okay. So about 2.2 to 2.4K is where I was catching a lot of the screeches. In my mind, I'm taking care of this maybe pokiness, if you will, of the top end, more so with the La2a and combinations of the Pultec decision making. And then the 902, I'm sort of focusing on the screeches, but at the same time, there is a trade-off, because it is also affecting some of the frequencies within, you know, the tone of the guitar and what he's playing. So I need to listen for that as well. I got lucky here to where it was targeting the fret sounds when he was moving, you know, from chord to chord, and it was sort of leaving the rest of the guitar alone. It's not always that simple, but for all intents and purposes of today, it did what I wanted it to do. So now what I'm going to do is on the auxiliary send 3 and 4, the stereo auxiliary send on this board, I'm going to patch in the Bricasti M7, and create a little space around the guitar. So I'm coming out of auxiliary 3 into the left side of the Bricasti. Going to return that to fader 15, and the right side of the Bricasti out of auxiliary send 4. Going to return that to channel 16, and so our Bricasti returns are right here. And this is off. Let's see for now. First, I'm going to take the insert out, and we're going to listen to what we've done. Okay. It's also a little louder. On the La2a, I turned the gain up just a little bit, so it's not level matched, but that's fine. I'm not worried. What I'm not doing a scientific A/B test with things. So now I'm going to hit the auxiliary here, and I'm going to start to turn the Bricasti up, and we have... Let's see, let's do a hall. Let's see. Let's do a live haul. That has a 2.6 second time, which I can change, but I'm just going to generically leave it. So the insert is engaged. I'm going to exaggerate it, and then we'll find a sweet spot. So that 2.6 seconds is from its initial time of decaying to its last reflection decaying. So, which is really interesting to hear that the algorithms of that reverb unit are incredible. To my ears, at least, they're indiscernible. That's why I got it, because I have small spaces here, so I needed to create real sounding spaces, and that was sort of the ticket for me. So I'm gonna dial this back a little bit. That's what we started with. So I kicked the reverb sends and our inserts out. And that's what we started with at the very beginning, just for reference. So I'm going to start at the beginning, listen to it dry for 2 measures, then I'm going to kick everything we've done up to this point in. All right. Well, it's a wrap for me. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'll try to make some more detailed videos and mix videos later, and I'll keep doing little cool gear shootouts and just me talking through what I would be doing in certain situations like this. All right. Well, you guys have a good one.